Agents, I need your help. I ate half this pie. How much do I have left? Agents, while you were explaining that, I ate the rest of the pie. How much do I have? Agents, I got a new pie. Do you want some? Butt lovers. I'm not addressing the change of scenery, but unlike every other YouTuber ever when they have boxes behind them, I'm actually not moving. The only thing I'm moving away from is any semblance of sanity. So, the people have spoken. So if you didn't know, here on the Athena P YouTube channel, we explore the lore of shows no one else is brave enough to, and sometimes commercials, I guess. Today we are covering Odd Squad, which is a PBS kids show that aired from 2014 all the way to 2022. That's right, it just ended this July, and it's also the first live-action show I've ever covered in this series. Now, I'm a big cartoon girly, so I was trying to put this off for as long as possible, but my sister kept recommending it to me, and then it won in the poll, and I finally gave it a chance, and it's actually really good. I don't know why I question your opinions that much. I'm the one that gave myself Special Agent Oso and Higglytown Heroes. No one else wanted that. Odd Squad is, as the opening always says, an organization run by kids that investigates anything weird, strange, and especially odd, and their job is to make things right again. Sounds simple enough, right? But I'm here to argue that it's anything but. From immortality to interspecies politics, how am I supposed to focus on math at a time like this? The intricate world building of PBS can never go unnoticed by me, but unlike the other shows I've investigated, much like an Odd Squad agent, this show actually gives me too many answers. Let me first capture the vibe. Caught a vibe! It's very Spy Kids with its questionable and yet imaginative and fun CGI and costuming, and they also change protagonists every season. The reason for that is they can't show the kids getting too old, but we'll get into that later. You'd think, would this be at all disorienting? And surprisingly, no. The chaos of the show prepares you for any twist and turn it may take, which I very much appreciate, because I suck at math. The creativity and randomness really pulls me in, and dare I say, I learned something. Like, did you know a quarter is 1/4, and 1/4 of a dollar is a quarter? And inflation is slowly causing our society to collapse, and that's what they want, because a scared population is easier to control! Anyway, so back to the fact that they teach us math. Seeing a subject I struggle with being applied to a show where they take down villains and talk to aliens, I can't help but feel a little jealous. I wish I had a show like this when I was younger. The format of the episode, more so in season 1 and season 2, goes as follows. There's an opening gag where they help a random citizen with something odd that happened to them. After they deal with that, they get back to headquarters through the tube transportation system, which if you think that's trippy, you're not even ready for what's to come. Once they're back, the boss calls them into her office to explain the main mission of the episode. And then they of course save the day at the end, unless it's a two-parter in which the company mascot Jackalope will say, "To be continued," which for whatever reason I love. The voice actor for that absolutely killed it. There are also shorts between the two 15-minute episodes. From training videos to public service announcements, these sketches are always meant to teach us more about Odd Squad and also remind us of the math lesson in the process. Let's break down every season before we get into the theories, inconsistencies, and what I think this company's purpose truly is, because the mission statement is a bit misleading. Gonna add one. Season 1 stars Olive and Otto, Olive being the more serious of the two, and Otto being a bit of a goofball. Classic dynamic, tale as old as time. Tale as old as time. Their boss, Miss O, first name Oprah, and the scientist Oscar are also main characters. I feel like out of all the seasons, this one focuses the most on the town and the townspeople. For example, Debbie and her pizzeria, the very Italian restaurant owners, the Confalone brothers, and Doug and his egg salad sandwiches, and many, many more. The opening gags that stuck out to me the most this season involved the brothers Ronnie and Donnie, because it was always Donnie that was dealing with something. In their first appearance, Donnie was turned into a cheese doodle because he was eating too many cheese doodles. Who can relate? Odd Squad changed him back to normal, and then they left, and then he had another cheese doodle, and he turned right back. So they didn't really permanently fix the problem. The curse continues. The next episode he's featured in, he's glitching while making sandwiches. Next episode, Donnie's stuck in a picnic basket. The episode after that, Donnie's stuck in a TV, meaning the problem kept arising, and he's also way more susceptible to oddness than his brother is. Something else I noticed in these opening gags is that oftentimes Odd Squad will solve one odd problem, only for another one to arise right after they leave. The tortured soul will then yell, "Odd Squad!" very comedically. Okay, now my ass isn't a block of ice, but now it's on fire? Odd Squad! I'm gonna be afflicted with this for the rest of my life. However, in season 1, episode 18A, Dance Like Nobody's Watching, Odd Squad met a man who had a fireplace as a stomach, and they actually had a gadget to fix this, but he said, no, I just want marshmallows for roasting. What? Maybe sometimes they do their odd solutions because they know their clientele. Now, I know the openings of these episodes are supposed to be comedy and or funny, but for the purposes of my video, I have to take everything into consideration. I'll talk briefly about the intermission sketches of the season before we talk about some main plot points that I find interesting. We see many of the infinite rooms of the headquarters. Oscar explains that there's many pools at the Odd Squad headquarters. Pools full of water, pools full of ice cream, pools full of fuzzy dice, and pools full of Chairs? That sounds kinda odd. Okay, in another one we meet the chef, and also reoccurring character of Oksana. And all she does in this video is talk about how miserable she is.
Yikes.
She talks of very unethical working conditions. How the kitchen is 98 floors down, but there's no elevator or stairs, just a rope. She also has to prepare 976 meals every day. Why did she sign up for this? Did she sign up for this? If you're born with an O name in this universe, is this just a life sentence? Because everyone that works there has an O name. Another notorious intermission scene is when we meet Tiggles and Taggles. Oh, that sounds kind of cute. I wonder what they look like. I'm gonna pretend we're not all collectively scarred and move on. The main plot of the very first episode of Odd Squad is that all the zeros are disappearing, changing the very fabric of reality. A giant wad of chewed up bubblegum went from 1,000 wads to 1. Less impressive, but also less disgusting. Why is that in a museum? But the real stakes of the episode is with Otto's birthday the next day, he wouldn't be turning 10, he'd be turning 1.
But I don't want to turn into a baby!
To figure out the pattern of the crime, they visit the math room, which is made up of giant floating talking paper fortune tellers. Is this the trippiest show I've ever seen in my life? Yes. At the end of the episode, we discover that the person who's been taking the zeros didn't even realize they were doing that. This is the start of a trend you'll be seeing a lot in the beginning of season 1 before the real villains start making constant appearances. Sometimes when someone does something repeatedly or says a number a lot, they take that ability away from the rest of the world. For example, in season 1, episode 4B, Party of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Miss O is chosen to do the New Year's Eve countdown, but she, along with everyone else, is physically unable to count down. This was caused unintentionally by Olive being so fixated on her New Year's resolutions that she kept listing them over and over and over, and she took the ability to count down away from everyone else. Also, in season 1, episode 7A, A Case of the Sing-Alongs, the mayor can't stop singing, and it's caused by his own damn self because he didn't get closure with his high school a cappella group. This episode also resulted in the funniest scene of the damn series.
Release the beam!
The first time I saw that, I genuinely couldn't breathe. It caught me so off guard. An episode that I equally loved and was confused by was Crime at Shapely Manor. It was a clear parody and homage to Clue, which I just ate up. And look, they knew what they were doing all right, if that isn't Professor Plum and Miss Scarlet. But anyway, these guys are actually associated with certain shapes. Lord Rectangle, Professor Square, Miss Triangle, and General Pentagon. And the main problem of this episode is someone stole cake, which is exactly what happens in Clue Jr., but also, how is this an odd problem? I mean, the people in this episode are a bit odd, but this episode stood out like a sore thumb against problems like a disease that makes you skip, half of everything symmetrical disappearing, and creatures like the Centigerps being let loose. I can't wrap up season 1 without first talking about Todd, his reveal, and the finale. Throughout season 1, people were talking about Olive's old partner kind of in a negative way, and every time they started talking about him, she's like, shush, 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 shush. And if I know anything about people being shush, I know that I probably want to hear what they have to say.
Hot goss.
Finally, season 1, episode 24 happens, and enter Todd. In this 2-part special, we learn a lot about him. He and Olive were at Odd Squad Academy together, and he excelled faster than anybody else because he can do math in his head.
He's too powerful.
They were then partners, and he solved every case way faster than her and was kind of an asshole about it. Did Athena just call a kid an asshole? The character!
Whoa,
The character! Todd then got bored of solving cases, started making his own inventions, which is Oscar's job. And the final nail in the coffin of his career is, and I quote, Todd is making things more odd, but that's completely against what Odd Squad stands for. Remember this quote. In the next episode, Trading Places, Todd created a gadget called the Flip-Floppinator, which takes numbers and flips them. He then turned Olive from 12 to 21. After this, he pulled a lot more shenanigans, such as framing Olive for stealing, which I don't know why Odd Squad took this accusation seriously, and he also competed in the O Games because technically ex-employees can enter. You'll see this soon enough, but Odd Squad follows rules word for word, even when it's to their own detriment. Anyway, his reign of terror finally came to an end in the season finale, O Is Not For Over. Basically what happened is Otto scared him with sheer chaos, so much so he dipped from villainy for good. You see, this was a plan Odd Squad set up that confused even me. Like, I was thrown for a huge loop, and I'm very embarrassed by that. For the entire beginning of the season finale, they made it seem like Otto was losing his marbles because Olive is actually being chosen to be the new Miss O in the next town over. By the end of the episode, it's revealed that they'll both be running it together. And these beloved characters get a proper send-off, which leads us to...
The sun won't rise tomorrow.
Season 2, starring Olympia and Otis. However, the opening gag of this season begins with Otto and Olive again, helping Ronnie and Donnie.
Classic.
Turns out the opening gag with Olive and Otto was just a recording shown at Odd Squad Academy when the professor asks the students what they did did wrong, Olympia raises her hand and quickly points out that the gadget they chose did not solve both of the issues. They're trying to learn from the opening gag fumbles. It seems like they actually take their job seriously. We then see Olympia's first day at Odd Squad, where she's paired with Otis, who not only doesn't talk a lot, but also didn't graduate from the academy. Sketchy alert. During this first episode, they also created a creature room, which I'm absolutely obsessed with. Prior to this, it was all the agent's responsibility to take care of these intergalactic demons, but now Ocean swooped in, and it is his job. I believe this is the main part of the show that people compare to SCPs, because I mean, come on, look at these beasts. I'll name a few of my favorites. This is the Hop and Bop that was accidentally let out of the creature's room in Season 2, Episode 5B, The Creature Whisperer. They are seen as super fast creatures, and their design also doesn't repulse me, like the creatures from Season 1, which I think is pretty neat. This is a wiggle warp, it glows, it isn't dangerous, but it is allergic to humans, and when it sneezes, it's really gross. So you kind of don't want to be near them, even though they can't kill you or anything. You're just gonna be covered in snot. Welcome to the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, baby!
This is going to be the biggest, slimiest party ever!
Any other context, that would be so gross.
The Daves were the main creatures seen in the Odd Squad movie, and I hate them. I'll briefly discuss the Odd Squad movie later. It was a time. This creature is part horse, part chicken, and its design looks like this because it was part of a flashback that was animated. Pretty cool. They play around with different mediums a lot in this show as well. Another big character introduction this season was Una, another scientist, and the moment I met her, I knew she was about to replace Oscar. They even addressed Oscar's voice change by saying one of his inventions hit him. And you know what? I actually prefer the silly explanation as opposed to just ignoring it and letting the illusion shatter for kids watching. His proper send-off was Season 2, Episode 6, Oscar Strikes Back. He attends an event called LabCon, which is a convention for all Odd Squad scientists. The president of the scientists is a dude named Obbs, which really doesn't make sense to me considering Oscar started all the labs in Odd Squad. He was the very first one to start a lab. So how did this schmuck get elected? Oh, not only that, but Obbs is also fully evil and is trying to take over Odd Squad, so scientists can get more recognition. He mind-controlled the other scientists to get an army, but they ended up stopping it, and Oscar is now the new president of Odd Squad. As he should be, if we're being honest.
Have fun at your promotion, sweet prince.
But honestly, the way they introduced Una to us was very effective, because by the time Oscar left, I was already sold on Una. I'm like, you know what? She's fun. She's a quirky queen. She sings randomly, so she's a little bit too much like me. Una also starred in the most high-anxiety episodes ever, and arguably the ones that had the highest stakes. In Drop Gadget Repeat, she dropped a gadget which made her stuck in a time loop, but at least she got Olympia and Otis in the time loop to help her eventually. In Season 2, Episode 33B, it was even worse. The entire episode was a vlog format, and she was the only one talking. She accidentally sent herself into a dimension with no people in it, just exercise equipment, which as an extrovert who hates going to the gym, that's my hell. But anyway, she was stuck there for 6 months until she got back to her dimension. And while she was stuck there, she had no way of knowing if she'd ever make it back. Where's the silliness in that? I mean, she did hit the exercise equipment, so now she's super strong, so that's kind of like a silly goof, but I don't know, it just got too real for me. I was very upset watching that. On a potentially lighter note, this season's opening gags become way more self-aware. In Season 2, Episode 4A, they declare, happy to help, or not. Either way, good luck. Then in the episode Olympia's Day, this woman's house is making all sorts of wrong noises. Toaster flushes, toilet makes vacuum cleaner sounds, etc. And they're just like, yeah, you have to move. I mean, listen, I kind of give them props for that, because you can't fix everything. The main threat of this season is the X's. They were introduced in the episode X's and O's. X's work with Odd Squad agents. They're a special division sent by the big boss, which is called Big O, and they're there to ensure that Odd Squad isn't breaking any rules. In this episode, it's revealed that this Odd Squad headquarters spends too much money. Relatable. But guess what? By the end of the episode, it's revealed that the X's were actually spending the Odd Squad headquarter money. After they threatened to shut them down for spending too much.
They were the ones that spent too much of the budget.
I hate them. Next time we see the X's acting like menaces is in episode 33A, where they're trying to fire baby Orson, but then we find out he has literal superpowers. Yeah, apparently this baby can fly, can grow, and multiply. The only other time we saw superpowers was back in the second half of the very first episode of the series, Bad Luck Bears, when Olive hits people with this giant massive bear claw to get a clear shot and win the basketball game, which isn't legal in the game or in the state, but no one cares. Also, this kid named Eddie has a laser eye in Whatever Happened to Agent Oz. This kid isn't even in Odd Squad. Why does he have powers? Whoa, was I sucked into some sort of time warp or something? Because it looks like the scenery changed. That's maybe the oddness is spreading it. Back to the X's.
I'm so freaking sick of all these X's.
The penultimate 2-part episode reveals that Otis used to be a villain. Whoa! Who could have foreseen it? Me. That's who. I was very proud until my sister told me she had the same realization when she was 7. And I'm actually not surprised because they were laying it on really thick. Back during the very start of the season, Olympia exclaimed, "Once a villain, always a villain," talking about somebody else. And Otis was like, "But you don't mean that, right? But you don't mean that, right?" Otis was actually raised by evil ducks and can fly. I don't know what to do with this information, but it's pretty pertinent, so I'm telling you. In court, Big O, who's the big boss, not only said that Otis was guilty of being a villain, but Miss O is also guilty for letting him in. Big O is really bad at his job and makes decisions so flippantly. The exes just convinced him Otis is still a villain, even though there's no proof. Even in fiction, the justice system is a joke. Can you calm down? It's just a kid's show. Bear claw attack. Ow, what the fuck? The season finale is a giant info dump. We catch up with Todd, who started a villain rehab. We found out that Odd Squad agents don't get paid. And we find out who the real puppet master mole is working at Odd Squad, but teaming up with the villains. It's Ulm. Dun, dun, dun. Oh shit, I didn't tell you who Ulm is. Such an unassuming character to be revealed as a villain. He was recurring and his only trait was that he was incompetent, but turns out it was all an act. My jaw dropped. Usually they don't have proper punishments for villains, but they fully killed him. I'm just kidding. They told his parents, which is arguably worse. This is the first and only time we've seen the parents of agents, but it's nice to know they're there, unless the kid outlived them. Because they're immortal. They never address this, because that would just be such a tone shift. The season ends in the most predictable way. Miss O is now the new big boss, the new Big O, which she should have been from the start if we're being honest. Before we talk about how the series continued without a proper send-off for Otis and Olympia, let's talk about the movie.
So much has gone wrong.
The movie cost me $5 in addition to the $5 I already spent to watch the series. So this is officially my most expensive deep dive yet, and I apologize in advance because there's going to be an ad that plays now. And we're back. I hope it wasn't a weird one. Sometimes I get ads on YouTube that are like, "And I want you to have no rights." Gross. Anyway, I wish I could give you good news, but the movie is like, eh. It took place in the middle of season 2 and the stakes were high because Odd Squad was shut down for months due to their new competition, Weird Team, absolutely annihilating them. The leader of the Weird Team, Weird Tom, whose real name is actually tried to be part of Odd Squad in 1983, but he didn't like to take his time, so when Miss O, aka Oprah, suggested to him to go back to the academy, he got really mad and plotted his revenge. And I thought I couldn't take criticism. Ami Boy was big mad and stole the instructions for the holograminator. It is also revealed that he didn't actually solve any oddness, he just used the holograminator to make it look like he did. So to recap, he scammed a bunch of people, put a bunch of kids out of a job and made them depressed for months, and stole from an organization just because they suggested to him further education. So what do you think is proper punishment for this? Do you think they A, put him in jail, B, community service, or C, a group hug? You're all wrong. They made him an honorary agent because he helped a little bit at the end. Boo! Boo! Stinky! Dumb ending!
So we decided to quit the band.
Season 3 is the narrative shift I needed as someone who binged this show. The first half of the season follows Opal, Omar, Orla, and Oswald. They are in a specific unit of Odd Squad called the Odd Squad Mobile Unit. This is why they lack an Olympia and Otis send-off, because they very well could still be working in the headquarters we're used to seeing. Or maybe this takes place way in the future, we don't know, because we're not in our usual setting. They travel in a flying van that on the inside looks similar-ish to a normal Odd Squad HQ, meaning it is way bigger on the inside than the outside. This division started under the guidance of Oprah as Big O, so we definitely know it's after season 2 at least. But anyway, our original Miss O as Big O is getting shit done. In episode 2 of this season, we discovered that this van runs on fuel. Now I know what you're thinking, because I was thinking it too. Wow, you're saving the world from oddness, but not your own emissions? But then they clarify that the van only runs on water, and just a gallon of it at that, which is kinda epic, not gonna lie. The only downside is the ship has a mouth. Why? Let me explain the origin of this team, because their dynamic goes way beyond, this one's silly, this one's less silly.
Tell us how this time.
Omar and Opal worked at the Arctic headquarters of Odd Squad, which nothing happened there. They didn't even use gadgets because it's too cold for gadgets. These two are the closest we have to the silly, less silly dynamic we're used to, but then they go on a journey to find this 44-leaf clover. They find out more about this because they requested information be sent to them from the Odd Squad library where Oswald works. And they would have gotten away with it too if they didn't post a picture to Oddstagram with a caption of 44 clovers, which a villain obviously found. Now, if you'll excuse me, I too shall post an Instagram with that exact same caption so I can shamelessly plug. If you seek out this photo, like and comment, looking kinda odd, boom roasted, subscribe to Athena P, or I'll confiscate your bones. Anyway, they go and meet up with Oswald in person to get more information, and when Oswald meets them, he's like, you know what? I'm tired of sitting behind a desk all day, having this midlife crisis realization at the age of 10, and he joins them on their journey. They go deep in the Amazon rainforest to find an ancient Odd Squad HQ, which is now a ruin. Have I mentioned how old this organization is yet? There they meet the best character, Orla, a 500-year-old warrior who's still a kid. They work together, each relationship between them is so unique and natural. The ideas are still fun and fresh, how could they possibly ruin this? With the mid-series finale, that's how. The main villain they face, the Shadow, has been their biggest threat since the beginning. She hacked into their van trying to get it to drive into this toxic lake and put them in harm's way many times. She's also stated, Opal made me who I am. Very mysterious, very ominous. You want to know how this reveal goes down? Who are you? It's me. My younger sister, Elizabeth? But why? Because you protected me too much. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I guess I'm not bad anymore. Aww. Excuse me, what? Pardon? Oh, boo-hoo, your sister cared for you too much. Shut up. And if that isn't enough of a waste of an arc, Opal decides to leave the squad. You are quitting your dream job to spend time with someone who tried to kill you for caring too much about her. And we never hear from Opal again. No joke, seriously. Opal was then replaced by Esmeralda, who I was almost adamant about not liking just out of principle, but she won me over right away. She's a little boss. Season 3, episode 21, Odd Off the Press, we get a big O send-off. They were holding on to this actor for dear life, but they finally had to let her go. She's still Big O, but she's in space now, and the connection is bad. Okay, you have technology for everything but don't have Wi-Fi in space. Likely story. This is where I must admit something tragic to you. Amazon Prime didn't have the last 5 episodes of the series. This is a classic part of the lore series where I just complain about streaming services for a hot second. The episodes are never in order, and there are always episodes missing! It's such a slap in the face to the people who worked on the show that clearly put a lot of work into it. To put it into perspective, this show is 3 seasons long. For whatever reason on Amazon Prime, it's 17 seasons. Why did they do that? I feel like you can really easily just not. You know what I mean? And just also make sure the episodes are in order. I really had to go out of my way to watch them in chronological order. No one else is gonna do that. Anyway, thank goodness I found the series finale on YouTube. There's just one thing I need to mention from this finale. The Odd Squad mobile unit travels back in time to talk to a little Miss O and a little Oscar. Like, they're younger in the scenes. They didn't pre-record anything, and they didn't really deep fake it. They just had to use some really clever editing, reusing some scenes, putting them in this new context, having a shot from the back of Miss O's head with a voiceover of a kid that sounds just like her. But it was so interesting to see because it was convincing enough. A young Olive and Otto also come in at the end, which again is a reuse of a scene from earlier in the series. It was believable enough. They were traveling through time, and they just so happened to travel through time right before they entered the room. Now that I've summarized all the seasons, what is Odd Squad's actual job? Because I would argue that it's not to keep things normal, so I don't know why they say that. Especially with the place they work at being incredibly odd.
Don't think I forgot that pool full of chairs.
I think their real job is to keep the peace. They don't actually have a problem with oddness unless it's causing a disturbance. If anything, they seek to understand oddness and just to keep the dangerous oddness away from people until they have a chance to study it more. And the fate of way more than the Earth rests in their hands. There are so many episodes where they act as conflict mediation for other species. In season 1, episode 16, Be the Perfect Lunch, they are throwing a dinner party for the Featherites. And if anything goes wrong, they throw a huge tantrum. So they have to find everything out about their species to ensure that everything goes well, including the fact that they have 5 mouths, 1 on their face and 4 on their wings. Another example is season 2, episode 29A, where Olaf the werewolf boy resolved years of conflict between Odd Squad and the werewolves. And one last example, in the episode It Takes Goo to Make a Feud Go Right, the gooey creatures of Queen Goo, King Barry, and Baroness Goo all hate each other, and it's Odd Squad's mission to bring them together. They decided to unite them with foods they all like, and it's super effective. They almost treat humans like they're the most advanced species, and that scares me. Looks like General Pentagon should have found foods that unite them in the Shape Wars. Yeah, I forgot to mention, in the Clue knockoff episode, General Pentagon mentions a literal war. And not that war is ever good, but it sounds really bad. You're gonna fight someone for being a different shape as you? Wow. So yeah, these kids have a lot on their plate making sure there's balance and peace, and food for these species to eat. Speaking of these kids, how long are they kids? And how are they doing this? Two theories I have backed up by everything we've seen are A, there's a gadget that stops them from aging, maybe like a chip implanted in their skin when they join, or the less likely of the two, but I like the way it sounds. B, Odd Squad exists within a pocket dimension that slows down time. Here's all the evidence we have. In Season 1, Episode 15B, the one that got away, Miss O reminisced about a time before she was boss. 30 years ago. By episode 17B, O is not for old, it's Miss O's birthday, and she is not revealing how old she is. The Immortal God doesn't give us more information until episode 22B, A Fistful of Fruit Juice. We have a flashback scene from the 1870s before Miss O joined Odd Squad. This means this is around when she was born. Also, this was a time before the math room, so we see Miss O create an old-timey version of it herself. Did Miss O create the math room? Keep that idea in your back pocket. During the retirement of the old Big O in the season 2 finale, he says this:
I've been putting off kindergarten for quite some time now.
And finally, in the season 3 double feature Odd Beginnings, someone exclaimed to Oprah, "You look older than I expected," to which she replied, "After not aging for 231 years, I decided to give it a try. I didn't like it, so I stopped again." I guess it makes sense to stay kids forever because they have all the time in the world and they haven't become jaded yet. Although they do allude to Miss O having a juice obsession, which I always found kind of weird. She even states, "I can stop anytime I want to." Drinking is her only weakness. Drinking juice is her only weakness. There are many different jobs at Odd Squad. Other than agent, mobile unit, scientist, and boss, you also have doctor, cook, maintenance, coach, security, mail people, assistant, museum worker, library worker, teacher, creature caretaker, tailoring, IT, event curators, the X's, and also the glue girl, which don't underestimate her importance, because as technologically advanced as Odd Squad is, the entire headquarters is glued together. So if she stops gluing, everything comes crashing down. The way that villains interact with Odd Squad is also very interesting. They're not as tight as Wordgirl and her villains, but Odd Squad is way too accommodating to them. Before I get into that, I have to acknowledge that the Villain Association is just as legit as Odd Squad, having their own academy, apartment complex, rules and ethics like no telling on other villains. According to the wiki, there's about 100 villains, but let me just name you a few of them. We have Shapeshifter and her twin sister Form Changer, who isn't revealed until 2 seasons later, Flatum, Evil Mime, Symmetric Owl, Father Time, Noisemaker, Tiny Dancer, the Hydroclops, Lady Bread, Jamie Jam, Mr. Lightning, and so on and so forth. It really doesn't take much to be a villain, you just have to exclaim you are. In the episode Jinx, the villain Tiny Dancer is going off about how important it is to recycle, and Oscar's like, "Are you sure you're a villain?" And she gets all insulted. She's like, but yes? There are some characters that are way worse than any villain. Oh my god, like Carla from the episode Game Time. Olive goes up to her and she's like, "My friend is going to die. All I need is a token to save him." And she's like, "Oh, that's sad. Dollar, please." You evil, capitalist, money-grubbing bitch. Also, the Odd Squad tube operator, O'Brien, is not a villain, but he is evil. He doesn't grant access to the transportation to any agent that annoys him, and he will not elaborate on how they annoyed him. They have to figure it out themselves. Here are some quotes from his coworkers so I can accurately depict his reign of terror. "I can't risk getting O'Brien mad. Last time he trapped me in the tube for 3 days. I missed my own birthday. And last time I got O'Brien angry, he wouldn't let me leave the office for a week. Now that O'Brien has been #canceled, he is pleading his case. Let's hear what he has to say.
Teachers have souls. I go to church. I'm a Christian.
Alright, now to explain the odd relationship between Odd Squad and the official villains. During the Season 1 episode By the Book, we discover that Odd Squad agents only have 20 minutes to interrogate the villain. And if they can't prove that they did it by the end of the 20 minutes, the villain is free to go. I mean, even if they catch them in the act, the villain is free to go. They just have to clean up what they did. It's less harsh than a timeout. Anyway, we don't find out why the rules are like this until Season 2, Episode 13B, when Otis and Olympia need to undo Backward Bob's backwards bubble, but can only ask him 20 yes or no questions. At the end of the interrogation, he also gets movie tickets, a fruit basket, and a brand new washing machine. Then the reason is revealed. The boss has a meeting to negotiate with the villains. The villains are very good at getting what they want in the interrogations through bribery at the negotiations. Just 2 episodes later, we see another way the villains have power over at Odd Squad. They give out report cards to the agents on how well they did on a scale of 1 to 10. Why are they the ones doing this? Why do you care about their opinion? And as I said earlier, there's no real consequence for these villains after they commit the crime. They just have to undo it. Oftentimes, Odd Squad will also try to show them the light like they did with with Flatum. Or like they tried to do with Flatum, it didn't actually work. His tragic backstory is that he stepped on a Lego when he was younger, so he wants to make all cubes flat. Instead of punishing Flatum, they tried to give him exposure therapy so he can get over his fear of cubes. We also see Odd Squad's complicated relationship with villainry when a villain exclaims after he's been caught that he's just gonna do it over again. And one of the agents replied like, yeah, okay, you can do that, it keeps us busy, but there are other options, and he handed him a brochure for the villain rehab. Now here are some inconsistencies in the series that only a totally cool, really pretty, awesome person who binged it would figure out. In the very first episode with the shapeshifter, they made it a point to say that she can change her form but not her weight. But in the episode Training Day, when she turned into a bone, Todd picked her up with one hand effortlessly, so unless this kid is jacked, they totally forgot about that point. During the entire episode of The Curious Case of Pirate-itis, all I could think of is the fact that Oscar said they didn't have a device for this, but in the opening gag of the episode Agent of Fusco, they literally had a device that can turn a pirate back into a normal person. But in this episode, which takes place after, Oscar insists there's no cure. During season 1, episode 34A, Now You See Me, they mention a revisible gadget, which is interesting because where was this in Whatever Happened to Agent Oz? When they implied Oz could never be visible again. What about the gadget you just said? The biggest mystery, however, is after season 1, we never hear from or see the math room again. What happened to her?
I will remember you.
Let me tell you all we know about the math room. R.I.P. The math room has magical abilities as seen in the episode Bad Luck Bears, where she gives Olive extra fingers so she can count more than just 10 on her fingers. A few episodes later, we realize her name is Carol. Interesting. Other than just her having a name, there's more evidence that points to her being sentient, like the fact that she gasps. She's also said she wants lemonade. Carol, aka the math room, was also excited to see Oprah's old partner O'Donoghue and exclaims that she wants to show him her new tricks, folding herself into a paper crane, a paper airplane. She was wholesome. She was always there to help the agents and actually gave a fuck about them, and by season 2, she was gone. Why? The only time they acknowledged this, believe it or not, was in the season 3 clip show, Welcome to Odd Squad. As if I didn't already hate clip shows enough, this is how they talk about Carol. What used to take an entire room now only takes the press of a button.
Is that a flex?
The math room loved to help, and you just threw her away like trash? Like paper? Wow. Would have loved if she was given a proper send-off. I probably would have written it like, hey Carol, have you ever wanted to travel? And then she turns into that spaceship with the mouth that the mobile unit uses. But instead, we're left with a paper cut on our hearts. And it stings, bitch! Butt lovers, it hurts me to close off this video because there's still so much more I want to say, but we've ran out of time here today. I can make a whole other video essay on the fictional boy band and Odd Squad sound check because I think they're the perfect depiction of a boy band, and you can tell the people that wrote them equally love and hates boy bands, which is like where I'm at. I have a lot to say about them, but not right now, my friends. Editing Athena, I'll leave you with this. The main guy from Soundcheck reminds me of Damien Haas.
Jay, Tony D, and Ringo flew out the window, and now I don't know where they are.
And also, there's a lot that I filmed for this video that I actually didn't put in, so keep an eye on my shorts. I'm gonna be elaborating more on there. There's just too much content. Stay safe and don't let any center GURPS loose. Bye!